Okay. Ralph?
Very pleased that we're to this point. During the COVID crisis, went to several webinars, and I began hearing about something called community choice aggregation that had a lot of great reviews, not only from our area, but throughout New York State, and then I found out elsewhere in the nation as well. Did some investigation, tracked down some people, and got a chance with Sam to Zoom with this gentleman, Jeff Domanski, and spend time asking him questions, etc. And then also to have him present to the Climate Smart Task Force about community choice aggregation. So I'm not going to steal his thunder, but I'm going to let him talk about what that is and what that means, and how it might be a good thing for the people in the homes of Putnam Valley. So Jeff, it's all yours.
I have handouts to share, so this is canvas.
Great.
Why don't I give those out for you?
So where should I present from?
Right there is fine.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank
You
you.
can sit at the table. That's good, because you have the mic right above you.
Oh, very good. Okay, great. I'll just give you a moment, but I'm Jeff Domanski. I had the pleasure of working in the environmental field and sustainability field for going on 3 decades now. Lifelong New Yorker, born in the Hudson Valley. But in my career, having worked in many different places, this program of working on community choice aggregation is really the most exciting thing I've been involved with because of the magnitude of the impact that it can have and the fact that it's a win-win symbiotic benefit for the communities that partner to pursue community choice aggregation. And so I thought I'm going to keep my remarks relatively brief tonight. I'll try not to go more than 10 or 15 minutes. I just brought 8 slides with me. The first slide is just an agenda of what I intend to cover. In brief, I'll do a quick couple of slides about what CCA is, what community choice aggregation is, and then a couple of slides about the benefits. Why would someone pursue a CCA program? And I'll talk a little bit about the approach to community choice aggregation that my team does. And I'm happy to have Jake Mitchell with me, who's a relatively new member of my team. And we are, and as I'll explain on one of the slides coming up, what my role is as part of a team to support communities in doing community choice aggregation. And then there is a slide about the steps, the process of what a community engages in to launch a CCA program. And I'll speak to that for just a couple of minutes. So jumping into the second slide on the first page, what is community choice aggregation? It's a policy that builds on a energy supply marketplace that's been in place in New York State since the late 1990s. In the late 1990s, the state deregulated, as did about half of the states in the United States, deregulated the energy markets, meaning they broke up the monopoly that the utilities had on the full delivery and generation of energy, such that our utility companies, NYSEG, Central Hudson, Orange and Rockland, all the utilities in New York, are delivery companies. Since the late 1990s, they only make money on delivering energy. They're kind of the equivalent of FedEx or UPS. Because the supply marketplaces open up, the owners of generation sources and brokers or energy supply companies in between have cropped up, many, many, many of them. And individual customers, utility customers in New York, have had the ability as individual customers to engage in a contract with an energy supply company to select where their power comes from. And so they will do this for one of 2 reasons, typically. One, to save money. The second reason that has cropped up in recent years in particular is to promote a renewable source of electricity. Typically, and almost exclusively to date, that's been a more expensive choice. So either do an independent contract to save money or to support renewable power, which comes with a higher price tag. The beautiful thing about community choice aggregation, which was enabled in New York State in 2016, in the spring of 2016, is that it brings together the possibility of saving money while also promoting renewable power. So it's a win-win scenario. It is fostered and it has to be enabled by a city or town or village in New York State. So it's in one sentence, returning to the slide, it's a policy that enables cities, towns, and villages to source energy on behalf of the members of the community, the residents, the businesses, the organizations within the municipal borders. For our organization, for the purposes of CCA, and almost exclusively for the other teams that are supporting CCAs, it's a focus on electricity. It could be done for gas, but with that idea of marrying together cost savings with environmental benefits, there's not much you can do with gas or fossil fuel except move away from it. So electricity is what we focus on. So in the middle of the second slide, I say the Joule community power definition, and Joule community is one of the 4 approved administrators to implement, to support communities in doing CCA in the state. They are my partner organization. They selected my organization, my nonprofit, to be the local program manager. But they're the ones that are the approved administrator, and their focus, as described there, is to support the growth of renewable power through the CCA platform, including going beyond the state level required benefit that the renewable power comes from New York State. Joule is really interested in fostering even more local renewable generation and including it through this policy mechanism to bring benefit to everybody through the symbiotic model. On the third slide, I have a snapshot of my utility bill, which is a useful thing to look at for people who are coming to understand what CCA is for a number of reasons. I live in Beacon, about a half an hour away. This is my Central Hudson bill. I think it's the 3rd page of my Central Hudson bill. But it speaks generally to the fact that everybody's utility bill for electricity and gas is 2 bills in one. There is a delivery section, and again, that's the part that the utilities make money on. And there's a supply section, which is the part of the bill that our program affects and changes. This bill shown here, I am in the program. Beacon is one of the partner communities for a program that we launched in the middle of 2019, along with 9 other communities. I am a resident of Beacon and part of the program, and it shows that I do this program through my utility bill. So it emphasizes the point that we don't replace the utility company. Nothing changes in terms of the relationship that people have to their utility company. They're there for the delivery, repair service, the billing, everything that happens now stays the same. What we do through the program is we change the line item, the rate that people pay for supply, and doing that, achieve the sourcing that the towns and the residents are interested in doing. My rate, as shown here, is for 100% renewable electricity generated in New York State.
Jeff, can I ask?
Yes.
What would be your prior bills, the amounts, without being part of the organization?
Well, logistically what it would look like would be there'd be 3 line items in the supply section. Right now there's 1 line item. It's a little small to see, but it shows my usage for that month multiplied by the rate. In that middle column it says 0.06361. And that's my rate of 6.361 cents per kilowatt hour. And so that is inclusive of everything for the program, including my team's administrative fee to support the program, to answer that question.
So your total bill was $123.41.
For that, yes, for electricity for that month.
For that month, right?
Right, well that's the delivery section, and then it doesn't actually show the total, because I cut it off a little bit.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
If there's no savings, did you experience a savings by Beacon entering this program?
This was my bill, and I'm looking at, this was my October bill, and just remembering the rate comparisons, I think it was about an equivalent to what the utility rate was for that month. The utility rate, by state mandate, cannot be fixed. Our program rate is fixed, but the utility rate will fluctuate on a month-to-month basis. It's just the nature of what the utilities have in buying on the open marketplace. Our program only proceeds, and I mentioned this actually, it's a good reason to jump to the next slide here. When we talk about the program rates on the upper right corner of the thing, we achieve a fixed rate for the program, which means that for the contract length that we obtain, which has been typically 2 years for the communities that are part of our community, are part of our program, we only proceed if that rate that we have for the program is less than a benchmark when we issue the request for proposals. So when we started the program for Beacon and the other 9 communities, it was 5 when we launched, it was less than the benchmark. So it was 7% less than the supply rate on average than people had paid Central Hudson. But last summer was a mild summer. As people might recall, we didn't really have heat waves, so there was a dip in the supply price. So I think it had come back up by the time this bill had come along, and it was very near our program rate. But over the life of the 2-year contract of the program, we do anticipate there will be a benefit, a cost savings benefit to the entire program. But you do need to look at the month-to-month comparison to know how you did in the program.
Okay, all right.
So I'll just stay on slide 4,
Sure.
where I talk about the program rates, the 2 bullets under program rates, emphasizing again that from a town's perspective, this does not go forward. A town does not do CCA unless that benchmark is beat, that you get that win-win scenario. You get a rate that's fixed for 100% renewable that's less than the utility benchmark. Secondly, though, talking again about that open marketplace that I talked about with deregulation, the second bullet speaks to the group buying benefit of what a CCA represents. In essence, it's like a Costco or a BJ's Club, where we have power in the marketplace. We get that win-win scenario because of the thousands of households that are involved in the aggregation. The second bullet speaks to the fact that we definitely do better than what an individual customer could do in that independent marketplace. So that's the first bullet's more of an apples to oranges comparison, our 100% renewable rate to the non-renewable rate from the utility on average. The second bullet is what could somebody get for on their own, for a 100% renewable product of their own, and we definitely beat that. On the upper left of that 4 slide, there are significant environmental benefits to what we do. By sending immediate economic benefits to the renewable power generators in the states, we avoid emissions for every household that's part of this program. And in the first year of our program with the communities in the program we launched last year, more than 25,000 households, that's 25,000 households plus that were only paying for renewable electricity generation in the state, which resulted in more than 200,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions avoided by that action. So very significant. It has an immediate benefit for the generators of renewable power in the state, but it also sends beautiful market signals going forward, creating a better demand signal for more generation to come online, to be put on the grid. So it's a really significant mechanism. So there's a lot of focus on the environmental benefits and the cost savings potential, not a guarantee, but a potential with the program. What's often most widely appreciated, though often overlooked in the beginning, are the numerous consumer protection elements that are baked into the program, which I highlight in the lower left of that 4th slide. Consumer protection is one of the significant reasons why the state enabled this. It is definitely for achieving the state's goals for greenhouse gas emission reduction and a win-win way to bring more renewables on the grid. But many people in that private marketplace, in those energy supply company contracts, what I found in the literally thousands of calls I've handled since we launched the program and conversations I've had at meetings, if you haven't had a bad experience in using one of those independent contracts, you probably know somebody who has. There are wonderful companies, private companies in the energy supply marketplace, but there are a lot of bad actors. Our program, the structure of CCA, is a transparent, collected, kind of curated collection of benefits that are available in the marketplace that have no restrictions on the residents of the partner communities. No resident is in a contract. It's really structured as a public benefit. It is allowed and does operate as an opt-out program, meaning if we beat the benchmark, we have everything in the contract with the supplier that we're looking for when we launch, the program launches, and residents who are eligible customers who don't have a third-party contract or who haven't blocked their account with the utility, they have to say if they don't want to participate. And that is a very significant part of the program. But with all these elements built into it, with the fact that there are no restrictions, there's no funny fees, and the ability, the ease with which we make it so people can opt out of the program, these are the elements of consumer protection baked into the program. Including the fact that it is a fixed period program. As I mentioned, we've been operating on 2-year contracts with the other communities. This is not because it's a pilot program. The idea is that other bad experiences that people have had with those private contracts is that they get into a contract and they can't get out of them, or they're not paying attention to them and they just keep going on. This is a fixed period program that can be repeated by the communities, and we do anticipate our current communities will repeat. as did the communities, the more than 20 communities in Westchester who did repeat the program after they launched the pilot program in the state. So it is something that can be repeated, but it very much is mindful of not being something sneaky or dubious or underhanded, that it's really offered as a benefit to residents of these communities.
Now, do the residents, all residents have to join us within the community if we adopt this?
The eligible list of customers are those customers who are currently having the local utility, NYSEG in this case, make their supply choice for them. So when we do the required steps outlined in the implementation process, and we're approved by the Department of Public Service to proceed, the utility gives a list to the selected supplier of the eligible customers. So again, it's folks who do not already have a third-party contract. We don't remove people from their third-party contracts, or if they, for some reason or another, have a block on their account with the utility, they're not on that list. But everyone else is considered eligible. And then the program launches with a letter being sent to them with partnership from the supervisor or the mayors of our partner towns, explaining in detail what the program is and explaining how they can opt out of it. But they do have to choose to opt out of it if they don't want to be part of it.
Okay, they can opt out of it.
At
I
any
have a couple
time.
questions.
Yes, absolutely.
So you're basically asking the town to bring you on as a supplier to NYSEG versus the other 10 vendors that came and knocked on people's doors. So instead of you knocking on people's doors, asking them if they want you to be a supplier, you came to the town and you want us to do it for the entire town? What if I don't want to change my supplier and I don't have a block?
That's what they just said. You
But
can
I
opt
have
out
to
of it.
literally pay attention to anything they bring to me and opt out of it instead of saying, I've had NYSEG for 30 years, all of a sudden now I'm paying a supplier. I don't think we should make that call for someone else.
Well, that's up to the board to decide.
Right,
I understand what you're saying.
I just want to see if that's what you're asking. You're asking the town to bring in a supplier to oversee, to take over NYSEG
It's
as the
similar,
supplier.
it doesn't replace NYSEG, it just replaces
No, places them as the supplier, not the delivery.
making the choice of who the
NYSEG
suppliers
picks
are.
who supplies the energy. This organization would pick who would supply the energy.
Wait, you would pick who would supply the energy?
Collectively, we choose.
Yeah.
We create a request for proposals, which wonderfully handcuffs the supplier that we ultimately would select to our program requirements, meaning there's no restrictions on anybody in terms of contract requirements or participation. And it requires them to deliver the sourcing that we want at the rate that is identified.
For
in the
only 2
contract.
years, and after 2 years, what happens?
If the town does not do it again, everyone automatically
So
goes back.
every 2 years, the town has to renew the agreement with Community Choice?
And it's 2 years on average. We've done 2 years so far, but it could be a 3-year contract. If we could decide that it's an 8, but yes, but in essence, it's for the duration of the contract.
Gotcha, thank you.
Okay.
So that's my overall description of the benefits. On the backside, the 5th slide I have is, I have 2 slides on the administration team just to talk about some of the benefits. And this is kind of a continuation of this discussion of the consumer protection elements of it. It's a state-regulated program, but Jewel Community Power in the upper left is one of the 4 approved administrators to do CCA in the state. And of the 4, they have gone far beyond the state requirements for implementing a CCA program in a number of ways. There is a requirement to do a lot of outreach, a lot of awareness building towards the launch of a program. But Jewel decided that that was not sufficient, so they included my organization as a resource, as a local program manager, to be present within the communities and as a resource to the communities for the duration of the program. Jewel also has really emphasized the importance of this renewable lock rate in what they want to do. And it's a conversation certainly for a future date, but there is a number of different benefits that they are using the CCA platform for, this enabling this program, to bring additional benefit to the communities. But we can talk about that at a later date. So Jewel is the administrator. My organization on the upper right corner is a local program manager for a nonprofit. We continue to do outreach, education, and program support. We are the ones, my team, Jake and I, will be there to answer phone calls, to do education outreach, answer emails, continue to do education, including, for example, a utility bill course that we designed in coordination with Central Hudson to offer to our partner communities, so people are more comfortable with the many moving parts of the energy marketplace. In the lower left, this is just a re-emphasis in the table on the left of what community choice aggregation is, and just for comparison's sake, because it's commonly confused, a similar structured table to show options that people have with regards to solar energy. Emphasizing in the table on the left that we are talking about electricity supply choice that happens through the utility bill. There are three choices that people always have available to them in a participating community choice aggregation community. One, and this is the state mandate, the state says if you do not take advantage of that energy marketplace, if you do nothing, the state says the default would be that the utility makes that choice for you on a month-to-month basis. That's option one. Or, you can only select one in this table, you could choose to enter into a contract with a third-party supplier. CCA creates a third option. And it does become the default in the participating community, the new default, that you go with a supplier that we've collectively chosen to be the representative for the program. But again, with our program, you can always opt out and you always have those other two options available to you should you choose to take advantage of them. These three options, any one of those three options, work with the three options on the right with regards to what a customer might do with regard to solar. The first option is that somebody need do nothing about solar, about putting solar on their home or solar on their business. Or they can, as many people are doing in recent years, put a solar PV system on their house or on their property. Or there's something that's gotten a lot of attention, and it's the reason I bring this up. There's something called community solar that is getting a lot of attention, and people are having their doors knocked on and receiving mailings about that. It is something that if you don't have a PV system on your house and you do want to reap some of the benefits of what is happening in the state, you can subscribe to a community solar project. And again, most of the reason I put this here is just to show that it is something different than CCA. But this is like a menu in a restaurant with an appetizer and an entree. You can mix and match any of these three options from each of these columns with each other. So you can do CCA and community solar, or you can do utility making your choice and no solar. That's the idea, but just to draw that distinction. Mm-hmm. The last slide. This is in small text, the implementation process. There's roughly 12 steps to launching a CCA program. The first step is that a town must adopt a local law, an enabling law. It means that you can pursue and you can launch a CCA program if it makes sense for you. I've drawn a box around steps 8 through 12. Steps 8 through 12 are the steps that after that point, you are on the path to launch. And from our perspective, you're committed to launching the program, because after that step, we've received bids through the RFP process that met the requirements. Steps 1 through 7 before that are non-committal steps. There's absolutely no commitment of the community to proceed with the program through steps 1 through 7, including step 2, which is where you select an administrator to help you with launching the program. After you do that, there is a required public outreach period, and the Gantt chart shows the estimates of our time spent doing that. There's a minimum 3-month outreach period that we do, after which we seek approval from the state for the outreach that we've done. And then if we meet that approval, that's when we can request the data, the demand data from the utility to put into the request for proposals to be sent out to the suppliers. And then the town will approve the structure of that RFP, making sure they like what's in the RFP that would go to the suppliers. And then this RFP is issued, after which we receive bids. And then there's the award, and then we move towards kickoff meetings, more public outreach, and then an opt-out period, a minimum 30-day opt-out period for people who never want to be included. There is a minimum of 30 days where they can say, I don't want to be part of this. They can send in a mailer that's prepaid. They can call us up. They can tell us in person. They could do the form themselves on our website. There's numerous ways. Any one of them is sufficient. And then it moves to program launch, including the letter sent by the leadership, paid for by the supplier, but from the leadership of the town. The last point I was going to make is the request for proposal issuance. I mentioned that we are actively in a program with 10 communities in Central Hudson territory. We're in the second year of the 2-year agreement with those communities. but this is still working. We just, the team, Jewel in the lead, just accepted and certified the proposal for 6 communities in Rockland County, in Orange and Rockland territory, that again met the requirements.
Is that also Central Hudson or is that NYSEG?
Orange and Rockland, it's Orange and Rockland territory.
So you haven't had any with NYSEG yet?
Well, we do. Well, no, we don't. But Westchester did. When Westchester launched in 2016, part of Westchester is in NYSEG. So NYSEG is familiar with this. And NYSEG actually has a wonderful page on their site describing CCA. So they're very familiar with it. So, but this, my last point is that the Rockland Community Power Program is about to launch. Within 2 or 3 weeks, the letters are going out to about 50,000 households in Rockland County for this program. So we're excited for that.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
So what's the cost to the town to, I guess would be Jewel, would that be the company that we would
Yes.
be setting a contract with?
You would enter into a services agreement contract with Jewel.
And the purpose for that contract is for you to do those steps 1 through 8?
Well, yeah,
After we do a law or something?
Right.
And you would do all the legwork?
Exactly,
And
all the
what
operating
would
costs.
be the cost? Do we get charged per household, or do we get charged
No.
per average? How does that work?
No, we're paid for by an administrative fee that the supplier who wins the bid has to include in their rate. And that rate still has to beat the benchmark. So it's 8/100ths of a cent per kilowatt hour that they have to include. So the town only has opportunity costs. The only, the legal review that you'll want to do of
Yeah.
the services agreement, but there's no cost. Not even the letter is paid for by the supplier as well. So there's no actual dollars cost for the towns.
Council, do you have any questions?
Well, my question would be, has there been any litigation concerning this program? In other words, have any utility companies taken a position that this is unconstitutional or illegal?
No, not in New York State. And they've gone along with the Public Service Commission order. It's a Public Service Commission order that established the program. Department of Public Service approval of it. In New York State, there was only one thing that's peripheral to our program that the utilities put any resistance to, and that's even stopped. With regards to community solar, which is a parallel opportunity that the state sees CCA as a wonderful mechanism to encourage that, the utilities did not, when this was launched in the state in 2016, didn't want to do a consolidated bill in which they would include a pass-through to community solar developers. But I bring this up because in December of 2019, the state told them they had to consolidate their billing, and that's happening right now. In National Grid, territory upstate, this month they consolidated their bill. Central Hudson and I believe NYSEG are consolidating the bill in early 2021. So they're in line with this program. Yes?
What's the most renewable energy that you're using? Is it wind, is it solar, is it hydro?
Those are the 3 that we allow in our program.
Okay.
Hydropower, wind, solar. We are exploring anaerobic digestion biogas, but there's nothing feasible at that stage. And actually, currently, there is not any commercial scale solar that is selling into CCA programs. So currently, for the current aggregation, those 10 communities, it is predominantly hydropower from New York State. That is the main source. And it's certified hydropower too. Any new hydropower that comes online in recent years has to be Low Impact Hydropower Institute certified.
Right.
But solar and wind, hydropower and wind. But it's weird. I'm such a policy nerd, I get goosebumps when I talk about this. But in the 2019 New York State budget, it included a $1.4 billion provision for development of renewable power, including commercial scale solar and offshore wind, for exclusive sale through CCA programs. So they do see this as a very important, very smart, very, very customer beneficial program that they're putting that level of money to facilitate, including the transmission that's necessary. And it's for exclusive sale into CCAs, which will continue to grow.
And where is most of your wind coming from?
The wind is southern tier up in North Country up to the left. There's not much down through our area. The commercial scale are all up in those parts and off towards the western edge on the lakes too. There's some commercial
One thing
scale.
that was mentioned that we haven't adopted it yet in this state, as far as I was informed. But with the wind turbines and the flight patterns of birds, that other states have put in motion detectors.
Yeah.
So if there's this flight pattern over the wind turbines, the turbines automatically stop while the flight pattern goes over it, so that we're not,
That's fantastic.
you know, but are we doing anything like that in the state yet? No?
I'm sure that they're looking at that. It's been such an issue about bird kills as a potential issue with the wind turbines, and not putting it in migratory pathways as part of the environmental impact statement that is required when they try to cite
Oh,
that. But there
okay.
is amazing technological development to prevent these things from happening.
Okay.
This is what I'd like the board to do, is to review this material, and can the board members contact you directly,
Absolutely.
Jeff?
Yep, and my
If
contact
they have
information's on the first
questions?
slide.
Because I'm going to ask each of you to think about this, maybe talk to some of your constituents, and let's continue this conversation. You know, I'm looking at it, and I also have some questions, so I'll be contacting you, Jeff. But basically, it seems like a pretty solid program. But I need consensus here, and I'm going to ask you to kind of review, and Ralph, if you get us information as well.
Yeah,
Or you may have in addition to the handout.
I have just one more question.
Yeah, go
All
ahead.
right, so say the town does sign up for this, and then you got homeowners who do opt out, then you got homeowners who opt in. Now, 2 months goes in and they realize that they're either no savings or they feel that their bill is higher. Now, I understand you said they can opt out, but they're opting out of the program coming from the town. Are they able to opt out from that supplier without penalty? Or is
Absolutely.
that going to be up to the supplier?
No, there's absolutely no penalty. That's part of the handcuffing that we do.
Okay.
Is that there
So the supplier
cannot have
cannot-
any restrictions.
Okay.
Yeah. And there are, there will be, in our very news-laden times that we live in, when news that should last a year in the good old days lasts an afternoon if you're lucky, we do a lot of outreach, but we don't get to everybody. People will be surprised when we launch the program. Inevitably, they will be. And we do, we've gotten thousands of phone calls, and 10% of them have been people who are surprised and somewhat upset. But the conversion rate, I can honestly say that the calls that start with somebody being very upset and very amicably when they understand that it is just a new option, and the fact that we are there to basically be a resource to
Right.
those citizens.
But you don't think your cost will ever be higher than what NICEAG's delivery fee is? Or are you, I'm sorry, what NICEAG would have normally charged, do you think your cost would go above them? Or that's
There
based
are
on-
times, yeah, and with our current program, there are times that we've been higher than Central Hudson's rates, especially with the weird dip from last summer, and the pandemic in May just dropped way down again.
Because of the supply.
But it's trended back up, and we, fingers crossed, but we do think that over the remainder of this next year, it will still turn out to be even, the economic benefit as well.
By the way, locally, but locally, if you know someone in Phillipstown, I think Phillipstown is part of one of the
That same 10, yeah. it's part of the aggregation.
of the groups, and there's other ones, plenty ones around that Jeff can tell you. I know he's mentioned New Paltz, but Phillipstown is right next door. They've been a part of this, et cetera, and seen the benefits. So if you want other people, if you happen to know people in other towns, I'm sure Jeff can direct you toward those types of towns to find out more information.
And just one last point on that potential cost, the beauty of being part of an aggregation now going forward, including what happened with Rockland, and what we would do likely if we did an aggregation, it'd be early next year that we would launch, the benchmark that we'd have to beat, and Rockland had to beat, includes those dips in the energy marketplace. So it does speak very well to the potential for the win-win-win scenario, including cost.
They would have taken that into account for the new benchmark.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
That's
Yeah,
exactly.
I understand.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Do
you.
you have another copy of this, Jeff?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I can definitely, I'll take your email address and I'll send it to you electronically, about 8 copies. Oh, actually, you know what?
We'll make some copies.
I'll give you mine though. I don't need mine. It's a little marked up. I put page numbers on it.
That's what I did. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's appreciated. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, again,
Have a good night. Thank you.
questions, anything, study the issue, and let's bring this back up. We'll put it on the agenda for our first pre-meeting in October 7th, for the first meeting in October, to continue discussion and continue it from there. Okay, let's move on to the agenda.
Thank you.
Again, thank you.